paragraph 54 talks about the movement for self-determination and mak of the qabail mak. So it's as if it's saying, now again, this is why minority groups really needs to do its research better, but it's as if saying is mak is representative fully of the qabail region. Of my understanding and my work on the ground and my work to talking to other Algerians as an Algerian myself is that this is not the case. Also, self-determination is separatist. People have to understand what self-determination is. Self-determination meaning that you define yourself to the outside world as a separate entity in all aspects, meaning you are a different nation, a different territory, a different people. This is used really for colonized places. The Qabail region is not colonized. Also recognize that this is actually almost asking for something that's goes against international law and against African Union law. And basically with the concept of self-determination, African Union already made it quite clear that there is no negotiation of borders. So when we are asking for self-determination, when we are asking really for the independence, because that's what the term means. Now, had they taken the term and said perhaps internal self-determination, perhaps autonomy, and autonomy is a very legitimate claim. Perhaps as a state, they want more freedom to invent, to produce their own laws. Those are all very credible. But when you say self-determination, you're going onto a different grounds. Please understand the terminology that is being used before using it. It is very, very important. When you are asking for self-determination, that does make you a separatist group. And by definition, separatist group does go into, even on an international definition, into terrorist definition. So please understand that. So if what the movement is asking for is mere autonomy, which is mere control over over the laws, over recognition, over perhaps implementing more of Amazigh language to certain, that's more than okay. That's, great, more power to you. But that's not what self-determination means. Self-determination does mean separatist. Please understand the terminology, and we have to be very careful in what we are using. And again, I remind everyone, look at the terms, look at how the terms were used in this document, and I'd like you to keep in mind, okay, how enforced disappearances were brought up from the 90s, how self-determination was brought up for the Qabail region as well, and you will see where else they will be brought up. Okay, now let's look at to SJ7, which again should recommend that Qabail region have self-determination. Now, this is not saying just mak. This is claiming that the Qabail people want separate. They want to separate. This is what self-determination means. If you want autonomy, you have to ensure to say autonomy, meaning you are Algerian, you're part of the Algerian country, but as a state, as a wilaya, you want your own rules. You don't want to mirror perhaps other rules that seem very religious or very skewed. That is more than legitimate. That is, very, very respectable, very, very agreeable. Multiple, I'm sure, states would like that, but that is not what is said. And here we go again with the gross violation. And again, I would like to keep these terms in mind when we're gonna go elsewhere, because you will see these terms and you will understand. By state, military, and secret forces. Again, they keep going on to more. They're not just in this document saying Algerian authorities. If you say Algerian authorities, that could mean the executive branch, but they're specifically going against law enforcement and military. One more time, paragraph 56. Yet we have not talked about, let me remind everyone, the detainees that we've made such advocacy for. And again, there are 64 paragraphs. This is the injustice. And here we go. SJ 12 talks about the vacuum concerning protection of LGBT individual and criminalization of consensual same-sex relations. So this, again, one more time, is being brought up over and over again. Leads LGBTQ individuals. Again, all of this is fair game. Every Algerian has the right to respect and dignity. The issue is not that. The issue is that all of these, which represent a small portion, had overrepresentation than what the majority of Algerians were asking for. Again, one more time, discriminations against LGBT. And then one more time here, recommendation over here for the penal code. This is on gender basis and basically women's right. And one more time, decriminalizing same-sex relation. Okay, let's go one more time again. Paragraph 59, I remind everybody, there are 64 paragraphs here. Again, migrant, refugee, and asylum seekers. One more time, we're going to talk about the Sahrawi Observatory, okay? And again, we will see where these people come from exactly. Stressed gross violation. Remember how we saw that for the Mak region? Yeah, well, look, we're seeing it again. We're seeing it again in Tindouf, of human rights still prevailing, apparently, and supposedly that prevailed for 4 decades. And remember, they had already mentioned in a previous paragraph that there is no time limitation, no time status, no status limitation, meaning they can bring back in international law something that happened 50 years ago. So this is not the problem for now and maybe tomorrow and 10 years. This is a paper trail. Understand the gravity of what just happened. In refugee camps, to include extrajudicial killings, kidnappings, enforced disappearances, arbitrary detention, torture, intimidation, cruel, abusive treatment, and with sharp items on the body, rape, and other forms of violation. And I really want to keep this particular paragraph in mind. Now, all of these were mentioned in several, but I want you to see later on where and why these particular languages are used. Paragraph 60 urges Algeria to do investigation again, some more on these supposed killings. There are so many killings that no one heard of them, and they weren't mentioned in any other report before. So very interesting. SJ11, again, one more time, we're talking about Sahrawi expressed legal status, and now they need to enjoy themselves. We need to give them legal status in Algeria as well. And therefore, the state under review recommends a census of the population. Paragraph 62, again, what do? They encourage Algerian authority to revoke delegation and the power to ensure civil liberty of refugee camps. Okay, and now supposedly they don't have civil liberties on those camps. They are not run by Algeria, by the way. They are run. They run themselves. Algeria fully gave them independence on that portion. Amnesty International abolished these amendments. Basically, again, talks about any violation of migration. And this is important too. You will see why migration is important here, and talks about the Grand Refugee recognize and to stop the practice of arbitrary detention and summary exclusion of foreign nationals without due process. Basically, the people that are crossing into the borders, the mass, like people coming in from all those borders, to not arrest them and to not send them back. But there is a reality that Algeria is not the gate to Europe and is not the gate to all of Africa. It is not rational nor even reasonable to expect Algeria to do all of that. So rather than really, this is again the part that's really frustrating, is rather than simply nitpick, if this is really a concern and those people definitely deserve safety, then this should be an international effort. Then there needs to be international finance, there needs to be international effort to help these. It's not Algeria's job to watch everything, certainly not from nations who don't have the same issue. Algeria has huge borders, and it has an issue on every single one of its borders, instability on every single one of its borders. That is for another day. There's more politics involved in that. But unfortunately, as you can see, we are on paragraph 64. Where are the detainees? They don't seem to matter in the document that's supposed to represent civil society. You could clearly see how it was used, but let me show you some more. SJ7 issues statement exists in Algeria, particularly in Sahrawi refugee camp. One more time. It's not, I guess, about Algeria. I guess this entire thing is about Tindouf. And Algeria basically needs to deliver passports in time. So this is what got into the document. Is refugee camps are not getting passports fast enough. I highly advise you to take a look at who these organizations, and just keep in mind, international organization does not necessarily mean that they're fully international. Who are the governance, who are advising them, and you can get to see, okay, supposedly the Netherlands, but I highly recommend that you look at the information. There's no information onto their and to who their boards are. CND is actually Morocco. One more time, Cairo Rights of Institute, which belongs to Euromed. Again, take a look. Highly recommend you take a look at their board members and who their board members are. China is based on New York, but Israeli is a Chinese organization. This is, again, Congrès Mondial is all Maghreb nations, really all North African nations. And then, of course, you get to see France and the violence. But again, do not be, when we see Switzerland and when we see New York or even Netherlands, those are places where people register a lot of organizations. Does not necessarily mean they represent the country. Please keep that in mind. And again, one more time, Sahrawi, which is Moroccan. And you will see some more. These submissions, I highly recommend you go piece by piece. I actually did a breakdown of them. If you take a look at these, the joint, you take a look at all of these. Again, this says Italy, but do not keep that in mind. This is from Mauritania, Morocco. Okay, and here again 5, which is another one, Moroccan, but this is registered on Switzerland. Same thing for SJ6. These are Moroccan organization, but the submission organization is in Switzerland. One more time for SJ7, African Organization Monitoring Watch, Sahrawi. These are all Moroccan organization. And it turns out if you actually take these, put them all in a row, you will see that there were put all of these organizations from all these submissions. So organizational submissions, which means some organizations submitted more than once. There were 98. Out of the 98, there was 49 submissions, all of them Moroccan. So again, this was the joke of a lifetime, really, that took care. But there's more. It's not simply that just Moroccans joined here. It's honestly, if had the claims been legitimate, had they wrote about Hirak, it's like, well, thank you very much. You know, that's not the issue. Is not that they're Moroccan. The issue is what was put. And here we go to the Rome Treaty, and you will get to see. What's the concern. And remember, this when they brought about enforced disappearances, they brought about the 90s, right, war, and they also linked it to Algerian military. They did the same thing to when they talked about the Qabail region, self-determination, they talked about it for Tindouf, and they talked about it for the Qabail region. And then, so I'd like you to go here, and we can take a look at crime against humanity. Okay, so entertain me for now. This is page 3. So let's look at what constitutes crime against humanity. So let's take a look at and you will get to see crime against humanity. Let's go. All right. So this is the Rome Treaty, what everyone was telling Algeria to sign, and take a look, crime against humanity, and it tells you, of course, any committed as a widespread, oh, these words look familiar, right? Systematic against any civilian population, okay, with knowledge of the attack. They talk about murder. Oh, this was mentioned, yes. Extermination, meaning killings for several, as they said, like lining up people and trying to exterminate them in the Sahrawi camps. Oh yeah, look at that. Enslavement, also messing up. Deportation and transfer of population, well, this was not mentioned by the Moroccan organizations, but this was mentioned by Amnesty International. Let's take a look at E, imprisonment of several physical and basically fundamental international. Yep, they did that according to in the Sahrawi camps. Torture, remember they had mentioned that there were torture. Okay, they also mentioned rape, slaves. Those were mentioned as well. Let's take a look at H, persecution against identified group for their political, national, ethnic, and cultural. Okay, again, one more time. They had mentioned Sahrawi particularly that were being discriminated. So we have H, enforced disappearances. Take a look, guys, at what they're going with us. So this was mentioned supposedly in the camps, and they really used Algerian submissions to substantiate this. And they placed it in here too to show a supposed pattern. And remember what they said. It was mentioned there. Status limitation. This is not a conspiracy. This is not a thought. This does not take a genius to do this. It's merely take the two documents, put them next to each other, and you will see exact words. And again, if this was happening, this is one thing. This is not happening. Okay. And the other concept is, where were the Algerian voices in all of this? We were muted, so they can put fake lies about crime against humanity. And what's the significance of crime against humanity? Well, let's continue and you will see. Other inhumane similar characteristics, and they even included this. If you take a look at the paragraph, remember from before, and I said towards the end, I was like, pay attention to this, look at the end, because they even mention, other inhumane acts. So in essence, with Tindouf, they had all, come on, let's go. They had all of these crimes against humanity, okay? And with Amnesty International and other organizations, I highly recommend you look onto who they are, the governance and the board. Like, for example, ACTED. It is a French humanitarian organization, but I highly recommend you look on who are the board members. And you get to see what they are looking for. And you might say, well, okay, what does this mean? Crime against humanity is international court. Okay, it is also grounds for R2P, which is right to protect. That is international interference. This is the issue. This was what was brought up on paper trail. Now, guys, I highly recommend that we do some more research. I have great more detail onto this, but I do not want to push my particular opinion, so I'd like you to do your own research. Please take the time to go through it. This is not a conspiracy. This is not an opinion. You merely put one document next to the other, and you can clearly see what's being indicated. And the other portion is, the other big, huge portion is the Algerian concerns were not mentioned at all. We were not given priority whatsoever. And it's almost that we don't matter. Where we were mentioned is how to embed these false crimes. This is a serious concerns. And again, our advocacy does not stop. Please do not let anyone misskew my words. I repeat, our advocacy does not stop, but advocacy is built on pillars of truth. And in this case, when you see stuff that are clearly wrong, we have to stop playing the game, which is basically saying, no, we will not take this document. This document has to be removed because it is based on lies. Okay, we have an issue in Algeria. We have a political and ideological expression issue. We have a repression of media. We have a repression of shared of ideas. We want more freedoms on those accounts. We are not going to stop until we free are individuals that are being imprisoned because of their political expression, their peaceful political expression. We have legislation that's being all encompassing, but we do not have crime against humanities. And we do not have systematic killing, enslavement, torture, nor do we need or want international interference on those accounts. I think it's, again, this is really geopolitic at its best, and it's not even that. Again, the issue is not that basically 50% of the submission was Moroccan. They wrote about Hirak in genuine good spirits of helping us. The Moroccan Algerian people have had, as we say, we've had long, history of really being the same people. That's not the issue. It's not the problem. Is what was put on there. And clearly this is not indicative of Moroccan people as a population. These are groups with political interests. So the idea is not tit for tat. And again, I strongly condemn any kind of retaliation against us, or any kind of, hey, let's go get stuff on their documents. No, absolutely not. This was desecration of sacred ground. This is wrong beyond the wrong, and we would not do this to a brotherly nation. But the point is this stuff, it has to be removed, period. And we need to take control of our advocacy. This is what happens when international organizations have control of the framework. They are not only misrepresenting us, it's the capacity of what they had put on here. So thank you very much, and we'll get you more information on all of this. Thank you, and happy advocacy.